Imagine this, you've been priced out of the Vancouver housing market again, and you've seen the ads. Only 5% down, move in 2028, or secure your home before prices rise again. You lock in today's price, the condo appreciates while it's being built, and you just pick up the keys and profit. Buying a presale this year could be either one of the smartest moves you make or one of the riskiest. Because when you sign that contract, you're not buying a finished home, you're buying a promise. And most buyers don't actually find out what they agreed to until years later, right before completion. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to decide whether a presale actually makes sense for you, what's changed in this market, the risks most buyers overlook, and how to protect yourself before you ever sign anything. So here is a full list of everything we're going to cover in this video. First, what is actually happening in Vancouver's presale market this year? Second, how presales really work. We'll then talk about who should buy a presale and who probably shouldn't. And then I'll walk you through the biggest risks, the legal fine print, and the math comparing presale versus resale. Lastly, I'll leave you with a decision framework, essentially a checklist to make sure you're buying smart, not just buying early. And before we get into it, I just want to give a broad overview on the presale buying timeline. So first of all, the project is marketed. This is probably where you see buy with only 5% down or save $50,000 on a unit, something like that. That will get you in the door, start reviewing floor plans, and actually consider purchasing the unit. Let's say you find the right property. It's a really good deal. Make sure you're working with a realtor that actually understands how to work with presales. Then you're going to go through the contract writing process. This is where you're going to do some negotiating, try to get the terms that you want, the price that you want, the conditions that you want. A realtor is really going to help you with this. Some advice when it comes to negotiating some of the terms is you want to focus on inclusions, upgrades, credits, anything else that's non-monetary. A lot of developers don't like to actually touch the purchase price, but will more than typically be willing to negotiate on everything else. So once you finally have terms that you agree upon, you have an accepted offer, congratulations. This is where you have to do your due diligence, and it is the start of what is called your 7-day rescission period. This means you can back out of the contract for any reason, no questions asked, within 7 days. And this is the time where you're going to do your due diligence. So we're going to review the contract, the disclosure statement, so everything about the developer and the property itself. You can always work with a realtor or a lawyer to help you review this, and then check to make sure that you can get your financing approved or a long-term approval. 7 days pass. Let's say you don't see anything wrong, everything looks good, you commit to the purchase, congratulations. If you haven't paid anything up front, usually they'll take a $10,000 deposit just to firm up the deal. And then that's where you're gonna have to start looking at paying your installments. So let's use an example. A 15% deposit is required for this purchase. You agree to it. You pay 5% year one, another 5% year two, and then your last 5% year three. So you just want to make sure that you're staying up to date with when the installments are due and when you need to pay them. So 3 years rolls by, you're keeping up with construction updates, everything's going to plan. You've just paid your third installment, so that's 15%. Congratulations. Now, once you've paid all of your deposit, now you just need to wait for completion. So let's say this is a 4-year project, completion rolls around 4 years. Maybe it was delayed by 3 to 6 months because that's how it usually goes. So one of the last steps before completion is going to be your deficiency walkthrough. This usually happens around 3 months before completion. This is an opportunity for you to walk through your unit before you actually take ownership and get to identify any issues, defects, scratches, things that shouldn't be there or can be repaired before you actually move in. This is really important that you take the time to go through everything, bring an extra set of eyes, make sure your realtor is there, and identify everything that is potentially wrong with the unit so that they can have it fixed by the time you move in. When you get closer to your estimated completion date, this is when you want to reapply for a mortgage. So make sure you get a pre-approval, an updated pre-approval. There's a good chance that you'll get a much better or competitive rate, much closer to when your estimated completion is going to be. You want to engage with a lawyer that will help you transfer the property into your name and transfer the funds. You want to make sure you're in touch with an insurance broker and have insurance on your unit. And then lastly, make moving arrangements. Now, completion is rolling around. Usually what will happen is you will get completion notice. So most developers will give 10 to 14 days notice when it's time to complete. So things have to move really fast. So you really want to make sure you have your mortgage in line, lawyer in line, and insurance in line. Completion's coming around the corner because things start to happen really fast. So completion rolls around 4 years later. Imagine this is a 4-year journey with this developer. Once you are officially the owner, usually it's the following day where you take possession. That's the key day. On that day, you get the keys, obviously. You get to walk through your parking and storage if applicable. You get to learn the building, the amenities, where your mailbox is, and then you get to go walk into your unit. You usually get to walk through and learn how to use the unit and what everything does. This is a good time to test the appliances. And then after that, you just schedule your move in. If it's a condo, you have to book an elevator. And that is the full timeline when you're purchasing a pre-sale. All right, let's just start off with a broad market update here in Metro Vancouver. So it's been a pretty slow 2 years. Metro Vancouver developers are back, but they are struggling. So there are projects that struggle to sell in 2024 and 2025. They're being relaunched with big incentives. You'll usually get smaller deposits, free upgrades, sometimes even incentives like free rental guarantees or no mortgage for X number of days or years. So meanwhile, there's waves of completions coming. There are roughly, 30,000 or so new condos scheduled between 2026 and 2028. And many of those that were sold during the peak at 2021 were sold at much higher prices. A lot of those sellers that are selling right now are selling at a big loss. That means buyers entering the market right now have really good leverage. And I expect this to be the case for the next couple of years. So developers, they need sales to get their projects off the ground, and that shifts the power back to you as a buyer. You have more leverage. So according to MLA Canada, presale absorption in Metro Vancouver fell below 40% in 2024. This is one of the lowest years in history. So this year, the pricing and incentives are designed to get buyers off the sidelines and into one of the homes that they're actually trying to sell. We're right now in a market where interest rates are easing, demand is slowly rebuilding, but resale prices have not softened as fast as presales, which means some new projects still feel kind of expensive. So before you buy, you need to understand what you're actually paying for. So let's keep it really simple. A presale means that you're buying from plans, but not a finished unit. You'll usually pay 10% total in deposit, maybe less, like 5%, maybe more, 15%. Oftentimes they'll split it up throughout the year or multiple years. There's no standard where it comes to deposits, and these can be negotiable. But essentially, you don't get a mortgage until completion, but you are still legally obligated to complete that purchase when the time does come. Think of it like locking in a future purchase contract. You're betting on stability of the market, not just appreciation. So the dream is you secure a brand new condo at today's price. It appreciates while being built, and you move into something that's perfect, brand new, under warranty. But the reality is you're locking in a price, but not a mortgage. So if rates rise, or your income changes, or the market dips, you're still on the hook for the full contract price. That's why in this market, it's so good to get a good deal, tons of inclusions and incentives, and something that will be good and valuable in the long run. If construction runs late, which it often does, I've very rarely seen a building complete early, you may be waiting longer than planned. I've seen buyers fall in love with glossy renderings. They see the rooftop pool, the mountain views, only to find out their actual unit faces the alley and the pool became a gym, which can happen. So the gap between render and reality can be huge. That's why you want to make sure that the non-negotiables of your unit, the price, inclusions, location in the building, are sound. Smart buyers treat pre-sales like a timeline decision, not a lottery ticket. So now, who should consider buying a pre-sale this year? First of all, buyers who want time to save more money. You secure a unit today, you get an awesome price, you keep saving for 2 or 3 years. grow your FHSA, your first time home buyer savings account, or your RSP. A 10% deposit on, let's call it $700,000 is 70 grand. And so you pay that and then no mortgage, let's call it for another 3 to 5 years on a concrete tower. So that is one genre of buyers, one of the more common buyers I actually see when it comes to first-time home buyers or sometimes even investors. So second, buyers who want a fixed price. If construction costs or resale prices rise over the next few years, you benefit because you're locked in at this price. So even a 10% increase in value by completion equals $70,000 in gains on paper. So third, people who value new home protection. Every new condo in BC was called a 2-5-10 warranty. The 2-year warranty covers defects, usually material or construction labor. The 5-year warranty covers water ingress, anything to do with the envelope. And then the 10-year warranty covers the structural issues with the building if they do come up. So your investment is protected in that way, and you'll also typically pay a lower initial maintenance and higher energy efficiency. A big bonus when it comes to new construction. Fourth, flexibility. Some developers allow rentals from day one or permit assignments before completion. An assignment is where you sell your unit before you actually own it, before you actually pay your mortgage and complete on it, which can give you an extra exit option if your plans change. And then lastly, one of the more important pieces is negotiating power. So unlike 2021, developers today are far more flexible. They'll often throw in parking, storage, even a couple thousand, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars in credit just to get the deal done. Now, let's talk about what can go wrong, because this is one of the parts that matters most. First of all, there's completion risk. So delays happen all the time. Construction timelines in Vancouver are usually on the optimistic side. So a 2028 completion could easily become a late 2029 completion. So always check what is called your outside date. This is the latest day they can legally deliver the property to you. If completion falls outside this date, you get your deposits back. Second is financing risk. You can't lock in a mortgage rate typically for more than about 120 days before completion. So if rates rise or your job situation changes, you may not qualify for the full amount anymore. They do have programs. I know RBC and TD will offer programs where you can lock in a pre-approval now, and they'll guarantee that pre-approval for when completion rolls around, whether it be 3 to 5 years in the future. Third is market value risk. So if condo prices fall below your contract price, the bank will lend less, and you'll need to cover the shortfall in cash. That's why you really want to make sure you're getting a really good price, or you may be out of pocket more than you expected. Number 4 is assignment risk. So the market for flipping pre-sales has definitely cooled. Buyers prefer finished units, and assignment fees can eat into profits. When it comes to assignments, you're really limited by what the resale market is doing. It's really hard to sell an assignment, so a building that doesn't even exist yet, to somebody that wants to walk through a building and actually see what's completed. And oftentimes, if you don't negotiate down the assignment fees, the developer will take a portion of the profits, which will eat into what you get in the end. Number 5, hidden strata costs. So fees usually start pretty low. The developer will estimate a budget, but oftentimes it's pretty conservative. Because once you have your first year, the strata forms really get a good idea of how much money it takes to operate and maintain the building. Your strata fees can spike up really quickly within the first or second year. All right, now let's bust a few common myths. So myth number 1, I can't lose because my deposit is safe. That's false. Your money is protected, but your time and opportunity costs aren't. So you will get your deposit back. You're typically protected under REDMA. You're going to get your full deposit back. But imagine you invested 70 grand into a project. 5 years comes along, it doesn't complete. You'll get your full 70 grand back, but you missed out on 5 years of appreciation. Not only that, 70,000 could have been put into anything else, and now you're just getting it back. So myth number 2, assignments always make money. False. So most buyers today, they really want finished units, and assignments often sell for less. In this market, assignments really struggle because not only are you trying to compete with the resale market, and if the resale market is slower, oftentimes your assignment is going to struggle. And if you are pricing it at the same as a resale unit, typically a buyer would prefer to walk through the unit with their own eyes, get a feel for the unit, instead of buying what you're trying to sell on paper without a display unit or fancy marketing like they do when you initially bought it. In my experience selling assignments, it's super tricky. They oftentimes, once the building gets much closer to completion, so let's call it within 2 to 3 months of completion, is usually where I have the most luck selling assignments. This is because you get more end users who want to purchase into the building, and completion is getting closer, so they become more serious. Before then, it's usually investors that are looking at assignments and they want to get a good deal. So you may not be willing to let it go for a good deal because you're trying to make a little bit of money or break even. Not only this, but with assignments, you're also competing with other sellers in the building that are trying to sell their units as assignments. And what we see all the time is maybe all it takes is one distressed buyer to really need to let go of their unit, and it tanks the prices for everyone else trying to sell the assignments. An assignment is a good exit strategy, but it comes with risks. In a slower market, it's not as lucrative and sometimes can be really hard to even break even. That being said, if you are looking at a pre-sale, then maybe looking at purchasing an assignment is a really good option because you can purchase it for much less than potentially the owner had originally purchased it for. Myth number 3, new means maintenance free. This is also false. The first 2 years often bring a lot of noise complaints, elevator issues, warranty repairs. There are a lot of things that can go wrong in the building that they won't even know about until you actually move in. Yes, all these things are covered by warranty, but the warranty is there for when things go wrong, and you usually don't want things to go wrong, but they always do. Nothing is perfect, especially when it comes to construction. Now let's get into the legal side of it, the things that people always skim over. So pre-sales in BC fall under the Real Estate Development Marketing Act, or called REDMA. That means your deposit must be held in trust and fully insured by BC Financial Services, which essentially means you'll get your deposit back and it is protected. When it comes to purchasing pre-sales, you also get a 7-day rescission period after signing, which means you can back out with no penalty, no questions asked. And you also should receive a disclosure statement. So that's a document that outlines every legal and financial detail of the project. So don't just rely on your realtor to skim the disclosure statement. Review it with a lawyer or review it yourself. Other things you want to look out for is the estimated completion date, the outside date, what the assignment fees are, and then whether or not GST is included in the purchase. Lastly, something that is really important is you want to make sure the developer has a proven track record. You can actually look this up on the BC Housing Registry. It'll show how many projects they've completed and whether or not their license is still active. Established developers that have a long track record of completing projects and completing them on time is much better than smaller or first-time builders that may offer better pricing but come with much more risk upon delivery. And I've had to deal with this. Almost always, it is not worth it, a total nightmare. I would almost always rather pay a little bit more to work with a reputable developer. Now let's figure out if a pre-sale actually fits your life. You want to ask yourself these 3 questions. 1, can I qualify for this mortgage today? And what about in 3 years? Number 2, would I still buy this unit if prices dropped 10%? That is a big one. And then number 3, do I have a backup plan if it's delayed a year or a year and a half? If you can say yes to all 3, you're probably in really good shape to purchase into this project. But if not, you need to focus on maybe resale or wait until your financial base is a little stronger. All right, now to wrap up this video, this is your quick buyer's checklist to buying a pre-sale unit this year. So number 1, compare price per square foot to nearby resale. Pre-sales shouldn't exceed resale prices by more than 10 to 15%. Next, you want to negotiate incentives, parking, storage, upgrades, decorating allowance, delayed deposit structure. Next, check the developer's license on BC Housing Registry. Then you want to review the disclosure statement with your realtor or a lawyer. And then budget an extra 15% buffer for valuation if things changes and closing costs. So pre-sales can be an incredible tool if you treat them like a contract and not a lottery ticket. If you value time and flexibility, you're financially stable, then this could be a really good window to buy while others hesitate, because there are some incredible opportunities on the pre-sale market right now. But if you need certainty today, or you're betting on quick profit, then maybe resale is safer. Profit isn't made when you sell, it's made when you buy right. So before you visit a pre-sale center, I've got a pre-sale due diligence checklist below. It includes the 7 questions to ask every developer before you sign anything, and a full checklist of everything to look out for in this video. I'm saving you a lot of time because you don't need to take notes when watching this video. I've got it all covered for you. It can save you hours of stress and potentially thousands of dollars. So be sure to check that out. And if you want a list of the best pre-sales to buy this year, be sure to leave a comment. I've got that video ready for you, and I've got a good email that I update every single month on the best pre-sale opportunities. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.